Have you ever had one of those Sunday evenings where you're scrolling through your phone, half watching something, and this quiet dread starts building? Don't panic. Just this low hum of awareness that tomorrow's Monday and the week starts again, and you're doing the mental math. How many more of these cycles? How many more years before the calendar stops dictating everything? My name is Anderson, and I want to share something with you that took me longer than it should have to understand. Retiring in 10 years isn't some fantasy reserved for tech executives or people who got lucky with Bitcoin. It's an engineered outcome that becomes possible once you stop thinking about retirement as something that happens at 65 and start thinking about it as a financial threshold you can deliberately cross. But here's what almost no one tells you. Most people never get there, not because they don't earn enough, but because they're building toward the wrong milestone entirely. Here's the thing. Traditional retirement advice gets fundamentally backward. People assume you need to save a massive lump sum, maybe $1 million, maybe two, and once you hit that number, you're done. So they calculate how long it'll take at their current savings rate, see a timeline measured in decades, and quietly accept that freedom is something for their 60s, not their 40s. But that entire framework is based on a flawed premise. It assumes the goal is accumulation when the actual goal is replacing your income with something that doesn't require your daily participation. What changes everything is realizing there's a much smaller, more immediate turning point. It's not about hitting some arbitrary account balance. It's about engineering a gap, the space between what you earn and what you need to live, and then filling that gap with income that arrives whether you work or not. Once you reframe the target that way, the 10-year timeline stops looking impossible and starts looking like deliberate construction with a finish line you can actually see. Think about what happens in most people's financial lives. They save 10% of their income like they've been told, maybe 15% if they're disciplined. The money grows slowly. Retirement calculators tell them they'll be fine at 67. And because the outcome feels so distant, so abstract, motivation erodes. They drift. They make exceptions. They tell themselves they'll get serious later, and the finish line never actually gets closer because they can't see it clearly enough to stay locked on it. But imagine someone who approaches it differently. They don't just save a percentage, they calculate exactly how much passive income they need monthly to cover their expenses. Then they reverse engineer how much capital that requires and what savings rate gets them there in 10 years. Suddenly, retirement isn't a vague age in the future. It's a specific dollar amount with a countdown, and once you can see the target with that kind of clarity, behavior changes. Because now, every decision either moves you closer or pushes you further away, and the trade-offs become visible. That's the invisible threshold. It's the moment when retirement shifts from being a far-off dream you hope materializes to being a construction project with measurable milestones. Before that line, you're drifting, contributing to accounts, hoping it works out, but with no real sense of whether you're on track. After that line, you're executing. Every month has a target. Every year brings you closer to a finish line you can calculate. And that shift from vague hoping to deliberate building changes everything about how you relate to money, work, and time. Let me explain the psychological transformation that happens when you cross that threshold. Before, you're operating in what I call indefinite mode. The future feels foggy. You know you should save, but the outcome is too far away to feel real. Decisions are made based on what feels right today because there's no clear feedback loop showing you the cost of those choices. Mental bandwidth gets consumed by present concerns, bills, expenses, social pressure to keep up. Long-term thinking happens in theory, not in practice. After you cross into defined mode, everything sharpens. You're not saving abstractly anymore. You're building toward a specific monthly income target. A purchase that used to feel harmless now has a visible cost. It delays your finish line by 2 months. A raise that used to disappear into lifestyle inflation now represents 6 months shaved off your timeline if you redirect it entirely into investments. Mental bandwidth expands because the goal isn't vague anymore, it's concrete. Fear and scarcity lose their grip because you're watching measurable progress toward a finish line that's getting closer. Now, let me show you what this actually looks like in numbers, because the math is simpler than most retirement advice makes it seem. Let's say your monthly expenses are $3,000. To retire, you need passive income that covers that permanently. If you build a portfolio generating 5% annually, a realistic, sustainable yield using dividend stocks and index funds, you need roughly $720,000 invested. $720,000. That's the target. Not a million. Not 2 million. $720,000 generating 5% gives you $36,000 per year or $3,000 monthly. Now, here's where the 10-year timeline becomes real. Let's say you start with $20,000 already saved. You commit to investing $2,000 monthly aggressive, yes, but achievable if you make structural life changes. Assuming 7% average annual returns from growth and reinvestment, you hit $720,000 in approximately 16 years. Not 10 yet, but here's what accelerates it. If you increase contributions by just 10% annually as your income grows, redirecting every raise instead of inflating lifestyle, that timeline drops to 13 years. Start with 40,000 instead of 20, and you're at 12 years. Combine aggressive savings with income growth, and you're looking at 10 years. 10 years. 1 decade from now, you could be financially independent. Not working because you have to, working because you choose to, or not working at all. This is where identity begins to transform. You stop being someone who saves for retirement someday. You become someone executing a 10-year exit plan. Discipline stops feeling like deprivation. It feels like engineering. Delayed gratification isn't sacrifice. It's strategic resource allocation. You're not obsessing over money. You're obsessing over timeline compression. Every decision is filtered through one question. Does this move me closer or further from the finish line? Opportunities start replacing constraints. A chance to pivot careers into something lower paying but more meaningful used to feel financially reckless. Now it's a calculation. Will my passive income cover the gap? If you're 7 years into the plan and already generating $1,500 monthly in dividends, that career shift suddenly becomes navigable. A sudden job loss used to trigger panic. Now it's a disruption with a cushion because income continues flowing from investments regardless. The same life events, completely different emotional weight. But let's be direct about something. The leverage in this 10-year plan doesn't come from skipping coffee or cutting small daily expenses. It comes from the big, structural decisions most people make once and live with for years without questioning. Where you live, what you drive, how you define comfort and success in visible ways. Consider housing. 2 people earn $80,000 annually. One rents an apartment for $2,500 monthly because it's nice, convenient, appropriate for their income level. The other chooses a place for $1,700 and invests that $800 monthly difference. Over 10 years, the first person has spent $300,000 on rent. The second has also paid rent, but they've built roughly $150,000 in investments generating income. That single housing decision made once, repeated monthly, can represent the difference between retiring in 10 years or working until 60. Same principle with transportation. Financing a $50,000 car with an $850 monthly payment versus buying a $25,000 reliable car and investing that $850. Over 10 years, one choice leaves you with a depreciating asset. The other builds approximately $160,000 in wealth. Car choice alone can shift your retirement timeline by 3 years. And this is where career dynamics transform in ways you wouldn't predict. Once you're 5 years into the plan and your passive income covers even 30% of your expenses, something subtle but profound happens. You develop what I call exit awareness. You're not financially independent yet, but you're no longer in complete dependency, and that changes how you show up everywhere. You negotiate differently, not desperately, not from fear of losing your only income source. A low raise doesn't force quiet acceptance. A toxic manager doesn't trap you indefinitely because you know you're building an exit that's getting closer every month. That confidence, that reduced dependency, people sense it. Employers sense it. And opportunities respond to composure in ways they never respond to desperation. But here's where most people sabotage their own timeline. And I need you to see this with absolute clarity. They hit year 5. Portfolios at $350,000, they're generating about $1,400 monthly in passive income. Halfway there, the system's working. Then they get a promotion and decide to celebrate by leasing a $60,000 car. Monthly payment, $1,000. That $1,000, if invested instead, would have generated an additional $50 monthly in passive income immediately, compounding over time. Over the remaining 5 years, that lease decision doesn't just cost $60,000 in payments, it delays financial independence by approximately 2 years. 2 entire years of freedom, traded for a car that depreciates. This is an opportunity cost made visceral. Every expensive lifestyle upgrade doesn't just cost money, it costs time. A purchase today translates directly into months or years of extended work tomorrow. Seeing that connection clearly, without judgment, changes decisions. It's not about guilt. It's about seeing the invisible price tag attached to everything. So, let's reframe the entire question. Can you really retire in 10 years? Yes, but only if you're willing to engineer it deliberately. That means calculating your exact monthly expense target, reverse engineering how much capital that requires, determining what monthly investment gets you there in 10 years. Then protecting that timeline fiercely from lifestyle inflation, impulsive upgrades, and the social pressure to look successful before you actually are. The path is simple but demanding. Invest aggressively. Increase contributions as income grows. Build a diversified mix of index funds, dividend stocks, and income-producing assets. Reinvest dividends early to accelerate compounding. Keep expenses flat even as income rises. Let the system compound without interruption. And here's the shift that compounds faster than any investment return. Once you're watching measurable progress portfolio growing from 100,000 to 200,000 to 400,000, monthly passive income rising from 300 to 800 to 1,500 time starts feeling different. You're not hoping this works someday, you're watching it work in real time. That visibility creates confidence. Confidence creates discipline. Discipline creates consistency. And consistency, protected from impulsive decisions, creates freedom most people assume requires either extraordinary income or extraordinary luck. Imagine 10 years from now, it's a Tuesday morning, no alarm. You check your account and see $3,100 deposited, not from an employer, from a portfolio you built month by month, protecting it from every temptation to interrupt the plan, and you realize work is now optional, not because you hate your job, because you engineered a choice. That version of you doesn't thank you for the luxury car or the impressive apartment you chose along the way. They thank you for seeing the invisible threshold the moment you stopped saving vaguely and started building deliberately toward a finish line, for understanding that 10 years isn't a fantasy. It's applied math protected from interruption. This path isn't flashy, it's not instant, but it's real. And it's available to anyone willing to calculate the target, commit to the timeline, and refuse to let anything reset the clock. My name is Anderson. Thanks for spending this time rethinking what 10 years can actually build. The timeline is shorter than you think. The target is clearer than you've been told. And the only question left is whether you're willing to start building it today. I'll see you in the next video.